Welcome. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, and today's topic is something that is very, very timely. It is top of so many firm owners' minds, is how to build a digital CFO practice. And I'm going to be talking with Shannon Weinstein about how to be able to get that going. You are absolutely in the right place if you've been thinking about CFO services. You want to be able to have a firm that supports your lifestyle instead of one that demands everything from your life and causes you to sacrifice. And also about the ins and outs of what it means to have a digital CFO service. I suggest you have pen and paper ready because Shannon is very generous and is going to share a lot. And as we wrap up, she'll let you know how to be able to follow up with her and to get more information. A little bit about Shannon is she is a fractional CFO for growth-minded business owners. She's also a CPA and basically at the heart, a teacher. Her real talk and relatable examples of being able to simplify the financial side of business is really something that helps business owners because it allows them to stop stressing out about the financials, their cash flow, and allows them to start scaling. She's also the host of the IRS's least favorite podcast called Keep What You Earn, where she releases daily episodes. And you can also find her frequently speaking on mentorship communities, masterminds. But if you want to find out more about Shannon, you can learn about Financial Solutions LLC at financialsolutions.com. And we'll put that below as well in the comments. But right now, I would like to just officially, warmly welcome you, Shannon, to the conversation. Looking forward to what it is to be a CFO.
Thank you, Lauren. Happy to be here.
And before we get into that, anything about you that you'd like to share about your journey and how you got to really be doing this as far as a digital CFO and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to make sure that folks know, like I am a CPA. I majored in accounting. I worked at Big Four for about 7 years. I worked in corporate internal audit. I even worked in sales at a SaaS company serving accounting firms. I've done consulting, auditing, basically almost anything in the career cafeteria for an accountant. I feel like I've tried at some point. And I really decided in about 2019, I was going to start building my own thing on the side. And it just evolved into what it is now, which is fractional CFO. But it didn't always start that way. It started with bookkeeping, tax work, accounting type work. And then it really evolved into CFO about 2 years ago.
And can you maybe, so that we're all on the same page, differentiate what it is that is different about a CFO practice versus a traditional accounting practice?
I think the traditional explanation is that accounting is always backward looking, CFO is forward looking. That's the thing that most people will say. But I think a lot of it is accounting is designed around giving the customer answers based on what's already happened. Whereas the CFO, I find the skill is in asking the right questions to get toward the goals, toward the future, to make plans and just strategically manage priorities. And I think that a really good CFO practice really hones in on how to support the founder in their goals in going forward and being an advisor, more so than trying to find the answers and the numbers to answer things that have already happened.
So part of what I'm hearing is that it's more about being future focused and maybe taking the numbers that you would do in a traditional accounting practice, how to be able to apply that so that they could achieve certain milestones that are important to them.
Definitely.
And have you found that as a result of that, it changes your approach and how you're showing up with your clients?
Absolutely. I feel like instead of just a simple expert or a consultant, I am taking on the role of a coach and a mentor and a peer, where I become part of the executive team on a fractional basis. I provide leadership, accountability. We help with decision-making, and we help with the type of support that the owner needs in order to make decisions confidently in their business. So we're more of the, I like to say we're in the future and present tense as opposed to the past tense. So as opposed to getting those phone calls saying, hey, Shannon, I bought a truck, or hey, Shannon, I bought a building. Mm-hmm. It's usually, hey, we're thinking about this in the next 6 months. Do you think this is a good idea? Hey, we'd like to hire someone in about 3 to 6 months, what will that look like? And I think that those conversations are way more fun when you can kind of help mold the outcome while the clay is still wet, as opposed to sculpting something that's already dry. It's a lot easier to figure out what you want to do with the business owner and help them make decisions when you have the ability to change outcomes.
One of the things I think that you're mentioning, and is critical, is I've seen so many business owners, they have really solid 6, 7, and even 8-figure businesses, and some of them have never consulted the financials. So when they start working with you in a CFO capacity, how does it make a difference for someone who's already doing well on their own, and now they really have the data to back up those decisions that they're making?
I think it's enlightening and empowering to find out that there's a reason behind their success. And once they know what the ingredient was that really drove the outcome, they can do more of that thing. And they don't have to keep guessing and iterating and trial and erroring around trying to figure out what is it that worked. And it's almost like when you're on a diet or you're on a weight loss journey, it's like, if I just knew that magical ingredient that helped me lose weight, I would just eat more of that. But I have to play around with my different balances, my macros, my calories, to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do to get the outcome I want. And when you're operating without the nutritionist, the food journal, or even the calorie counter, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and guessing. And I know for most people listening who've ever been on this kind of journey before, myself included, when you don't actually look at how many calories are in something, you do a pretty crappy job of guessing how many calories are actually in stuff. Mm-hmm. And you end up consuming way more because you're just not aware. And that's what business owners are doing. They're just not looking at the numbers to understand the truth behind them. And they're kind of going, yeah, I make about this much in profit or this much in revenue. And then when we really look at the numbers, we're like, no, you don't. And it's all kind of the story they're telling until the numbers actually tell the truth of it. And it's really fun to work with business owners to come to that realization and then to use it as a tool for the future for decision making, as opposed to a way to measure themselves and limit themselves. That is a big mindset shift we have to go through with a lot of founders when we start.
And as you're talking about this, I can really hear your passion coming through about helping them understand the story behind the numbers. One of the things that I do see a lot of times is that there's so many accountants out there that say, my clients are busy. I can't even get them to give me the information I want. They don't want to meet with me. They don't really have the time or the interest. So how does this maybe alter how an accountant would interact with their clients?
I think it's all about how they perceive you. If they perceive you as someone who, they have to consult with once or twice a year, or is going to tell them bad news, unfortunately, which is a lot of the case, even for us, they may not look forward to meeting with you. But I think if they start to see you and treat you as a peer and as a manager in their business, to look at you and say, hey, I need your help with this decision, they start flexing that muscle and seeing the benefit, they're going to keep doing it. So if clients aren't even showing up to phone calls with you, or if they're not engaging with you, it's probably a relationship thing where they're not perceiving you in the way that you want to be perceived. So you have to deliver enough value to them, or understand how they measure the value you deliver, and understand what they bought versus what you sold them. Because there's a big difference in the perception of what's on your menu. And this is a huge issue with accountants, is not being able to explain what this service includes and doesn't, and what the client thinks they're getting. Very often they think they're getting strategy, but they're just getting tax prep and bookkeeping. And then they're knocking down your door. You're not offering them those services because they're not paying for them. And then on the counter side, they've just bought tax prep. They're not interested in doing more tax planning with you, even though it's good for them. They didn't order the vegetables, so stop trying to serve them the vegetables. They did not order them, so they will not eat them. So it really comes down to knowing what they actually ordered and helping them make the right decisions on what they need.
Now, as you're talking about this, what you were mentioning earlier also is that not only are you helping them with the financial insights, but you're really coming to this as a coach, a mentor, a peer. Is there some type of additional training that you needed to have to be able to have these engaging conversations where they want to meet with you, as opposed to the more fundamental ones where their eyes just glaze over and they see this as a waste of their time?
Yeah, believe it or not, I actually took trainings in coaching certifications, actually life coaching, believe it or not, because the strategy I learned was how to listen empathetically, how to ask the right questions to pull the right information out of a client, how to understand their perspective, how to communicate better with them. It came down to relationship style skills that actually got me the value I needed to then utilize my expertise to help them. It was about bridging the connection between how they were communicating to me and how I was receiving that information and asking questions back. So when the interaction improved, the value improved. And sometimes it's not about engaging in more CPEs and more technical training to deliver more value. Sometimes it's just about the customer service experience and learning how to speak better to your clients, engage with them, and make them look forward to talking to you as a friend, mentor, and peer, as opposed to an obligatory appointment they have to have. And I will give credit to a fantastic program I was in with Michael King called the CFO Accelerator as well. That helped me a ton with developing a specific CFO program and offer that I could deliver to my clients and could basically engage with them on a higher level.
And part of what I see with so many business owners is when we're talking about people's money, it's a very, very sensitive topic. But a lot of accounting professionals don't feel like they have those relationship skills. It actually makes them a little bit uncomfortable. But as you're moving in this direction, Shannon, part of what I'm really hearing is you step in the role of almost being like a financial therapist, because it's about having those transparent conversations, allowing them to be vulnerable with you without feeling any guilt or shame, because you want to be solution focused as opposed to saying, how could you do this? So is that part of what you're seeing, is that you're really having a deeper conversation and almost getting into that financial therapy role in order to be able to help your clients move forward?
Definitely. And I know there's hesitation in our profession around getting too close or to transcend that line into the personal area. But I think that the more they see you and trust you as an advisor, the more they're willing to open up about what's going on. And you don't have to necessarily engage with all of that. You don't have to be responding to personal text over the weekend. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those conversations can air on, hey, you know, one of our goals is to send Junior to private school next year, and we're thinking of doing this, and we want to take more vacations, and this is what's going on in our relationship, and this is what's going on with family. That's okay to listen to, just because they need to talk through it. And maybe there's a financial implication to those decisions and those goals that you can then talk through and figure out how to make everybody happy as much as possible. And I think that if you can just listen empathetically, as opposed to kind of tuning out the personal conversations, I think there's a lot of gold in there that you can use to help them.
And I believe that sometimes people just crave to be seen and heard, and the listening has as much value, sometimes even more, than the response that you give to them. So with that being said, part of what I hear is that you maybe put some structure around how you meet with people. Can you explain what a meeting structure might look like?
So I always start with, what are we celebrating? You know, what are we celebrating? What can we celebrate? Or what's a win that you had? What are you grateful for? What are you proud of? I actually like the what are you proud of this week, because it may not be necessarily a success, but it could just be, hey, I made it through my IRS audit. Or like, even if it wasn't an optimal outcome, like we're celebrating that we made it through. And I think that entrepreneurs and business owners don't get enough celebration for themselves, and nobody's asking them that question. Like, what are you proud of this week? And there's just a lot of fires to put out and challenges. So having that moment to give them a little bit of time to really reflect and be proud is great. And then the next thing we really do is we kind of jump into business on any updates from them, give them the floor, and basically say, what would you like to accomplish today? Or how would you perceive this meeting to be successful? Like, what do we have to accomplish for you to feel like it's successful? Then we basically go through those things. I mean, I bring an agenda of a variety of things I have to go through with them, but I kind of let them in our check-in calls tell me what their top priority is right now. And I try to assess where they're at mentally. And this is really important, because if you're going to deliver very tangible, tactical, even bad news, if you're going to just kind of go through the list of like the bullet points in the email, they may not be in a position to receive all that. They may not be in a great mental state. Maybe something happened that morning. Maybe they were running late. They didn't get enough sleep last night. You know, a big bill came and they're kind of feeling a little anxious. Try to figure out where they're at. try to figure out where they're at, even emotionally or mentally, depending on how you want to phrase that, and use that in your meeting to then redirect, to pivot a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to save some of that for an email later, but I'm going to talk about this with them so that they, we get the crucial, critical things done. So I like to say, focus on mission critical items or things you need to discuss in person, and also build relationships. Ask them how their kids are doing. Remember their kids' names. Ask them about, the last thing you guys talked about on a call, and get a follow-up. Show that you're really listening.
So part of what I'm hearing as far as a general structure would be focusing on the celebrations, the wins, maybe something that they have done and that they're proud about. Also then tuning into right now and what's top of mind for them to be able to really understand how you can best support them. Just getting an emotional well-being check-in as to the state of the union for them, as well as with their business. And then realizing that sometimes you need to be flexible. And if the timing isn't right, you might want to sideline something for another time. Does that sound about right as far as the meeting structure goes?
Totally. And I would say, don't interrupt them from sharing anything. If they want to share something with you, let them, especially if it's like, this isn't even relevant and it's kind of personal, just let them do it, because I think they just need to talk through some stuff. You got to build the relationship first.
Now, one of the things that I love to talk about is pricing your services, understand the value of where that's coming, and that a lot of times firm owners just think, oh, if I offer advisory services, I can charge more. But I know that that's not really that simple as far as the math goes. So how can you look at the pricing part for charging more for your services?
I compare it to a restaurant and I say, adding a filet mignon to your menu, yes, you can charge more, but I hope it's cooked well and it should be worth the price that you're charging for it. So the most important thing with price, if I use the restaurant analogy, is how damn good is that dish where people will come in and order it over and over again, no questions asked. And, is it justified in the price? A lot of accountants right now will go to add advisory services in, up their prices, but they're not focused on the actual offer. What is it you're giving them? What is the true value of what you're able to provide? It's not just this simple, I can increase my price X 100% just by calling it advisory services. It has to taste really good. It has to be at the level of what they need and ensure their success. So I always say, think about the level of service that would ensure the most success in the outcome, in the desired outcome that you want for a client. That should be your core offer, and charge accordingly for that service. I'm not saying not to increase your prices, but I think the value and the price have to correspond well. And there isn't enough conversation over increasing your value over increasing your prices.
And part of what I see, and I think that we're on the same page about, is that it's not just the amount of time or how many meetings you have. It's really about focusing on what's top of mind for your clients. And it's going to be different things for different clients. Some of them are interested in an exit strategy. So it's about valuation of their business. Others might be about getting their personal time back because they're burned out and there's no more capacity. And it's really asking those key critical questions, which you mentioned, to really tap into what's top of mind and a priority for them, because it's not going to be the same across the board for all clients. And one is going to really value maybe valuation. Another one's going to look at expansion. And then a third might be looking at just being able to increase revenues, but being able to work less time because they want to improve their quality of life. Does that sound like that's part of where you're coming from as far as understanding what their needs are?
Yeah, and I think I measure value, not an output, as you mentioned. Thank you for clarifying that, because value is not the hours you're pouring in. It's the value of what they're getting in exchange for what you're doing. Something as simple as faxing a 2553 to get an S Corp filed could save someone tens of thousands of dollars or more in taxes and give them so much peace of mind, especially if you're going to take them through the entire implementation and say, I got you. I'm going to make sure you're held through this whole process, and I'm going to make sure you have all the tools you need to be compliant from here on out, and you're going to save this money year over year. That is insanely valuable. So to charge people for the time it takes you, which might be 15 minutes, is doing yourself a disservice. So I completely agree.
And as I see with firm owners, they are hard workers, and a lot of them give and give and give to the point where they're dealing with burnout, overwhelm, too many clients, not the capacity to be able to expand into CFO services. So how would you suggest looking at this so that it supports your lifestyle as opposed to lowering your quality of life?
I mean, I think it's all about building a business around your life and not the other way around. And it's easier than you would think, or it's simpler than you would think if you're willing to make the certain things a priority. So for me, it's about putting on my calendar first. Whenever I want to move my body, go to the gym. Whenever I want to take breaks, I put those in the calendar. They are unbookable. I use Calendly, which you can use Calendly, Acuity, any of these other calendar systems to actually only be available for client calls Tuesday through Thursday in the afternoons for me. So I have specific time blocks that are already set as boundaries so that I don't have to worry about it infringing on other things that I have going on. I'm still able to go to the grocery store when I need to, or take a break when I need to. It's very manageable, but also, for example, I live in Costa Rica half the year. So I am able to operate my business virtually, but I'm also able to, come and go as I please and be unavailable for periods of time. It's totally okay because I've set the right expectations with clients. And that's really the key. You have to set the expectations of when you're open, when you're available, when you'll get back to them, and just give them the peace of mind that you've received their message, they are seen and heard, and you will get back to them soon. It doesn't have to be this sense of fabricated urgency that we do to ourselves, that we have to respond to every little thing, or we have to be available 24/7 to respond to these types of messages. We cannot sustain that. So you've got to build the systems.
So did you learn this from personal experience where you already had the job that took everything from you and that you just made a decision that you were going to have that with this moving forward?
Yeah, my first day after I quit my job, or as soon as I gave my notice, I went through what I call my calendar liberation stage, which was, oh my gosh, I now own my calendar and can tell it what I want to do. Because when I worked in a corporate job, the last thing I owned was my own calendar. It was packed with triple booked meetings from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'm not kidding. I was a director level in a company, and I was just bogged down with everybody needing your time because that's all you were good for, to be honest. They just kept taking your time. There was no time to eat. There was no time to actually do the work that these meetings were about. So I just said, enough is enough. I'm not doing that. I am not falling into that habit. I'm going to build this around the time that I want to have, that I wish I had when I worked in corporate. So that was absolutely a reaction to the exact opposite of what I'd experienced.
And I think that what you're talking about is really that there's this whole continuum between the style model of of having a firm versus the relational. And the more that you can move towards the relational side is something that really allows you to be able to have the capacity to work on your business, to be able to have that free time, to have the ability to take time off when necessary and not feel that you have to pay the price later on down the road. So yeah. One more thing that comes up for me is that a lot of times when we're looking at expectations or setting boundaries, we just think that anybody that wants to pay for our services, we ought to be accepting as a client. But as you know, some clients are a dream to work with and some give you headaches. So what is your approach when you find that you're talking with someone and they're just not a right fit for you and your firm?
So it's funny because I compare this entirely to the world of online dating when I was in my 20s. It's the exact same feeling of, if you're willing to say yes to anyone, despite all the red flags and despite all the fact that this is not probably going to be a compatible match, but you show up to the date anyway, you're doing yourself and them a disservice and wasting time and wasting money and wasting energy. So it's much easier if you're able to assess and create some type of lead qualification, whether that be an intake form, a questionnaire. Put up a boundary between you and your calendar so that you can selectively choose the people who are going to get even a half hour of your time to talk to you. In the beginning, I was taking calls left and right. I was just like, open for business. Anybody who is interested in working with me, come. I'll take anybody because I need validation and I need to know that I'm wanted and my services are desired. So 100% my first year of business was like that because I just needed revenue. I wanted to grow the business and I didn't know what I was doing. And I think that as you go through, you realize who you like working with, who you don't like working with. And then you build the filters around that to figure out how to sift through to find the people you really want to work with. And what I've realized is it's partially the business profile, but it's partially character. So we look at our core values. Do they demonstrate our core values? We look at, what are they going to be like to work with? Are they coachable? We look for other qualities of the founder, not just the revenue of the business and can they afford us, but will they be a pleasant client to team up with? Because we want to go for that long-term relationship and find compatibility with the founder as well.
And part of what that you're talking about is the pre-qualifying process, which I think scares so many people. Oh, if I don't have a calendar link on my website, I'm going to potentially lose a client. But this is really about recognizing that you don't have to work with everybody, and that the intention is to make sure that you're working with the right person, because as you said, this is a long-term relationship. And who wants to end up in a long-term bad relationship that you regret later on down the road? Because having those wrong clients actually keep you from having maybe more the right clients down the road. So I think that it's really important, as you were saying, is to make sure that someone's a good fit for you and your firm, not just anybody who's willing to pay your fees, because sometimes you're going to hold on to someone much too long, and trying to divorce them later on down the road is going to be a lot more difficult.
Absolutely.
So do you have a gentle way of saying no to someone or letting someone know that they're not a fit for you and your services?
So if it's definitely a no, just based on the criteria of the questionnaire, they get a very pleasantly worded email that says, basically, not at this time. Here are some other ways you can interact with our free content. Here are some ways that I can support you, from afar, basically. And it's a very professionally worded, kind of a gentle no, or no, not yet. It's more of a not yet until you grow to a level, right? So if a business owner who's making 20 grand a year in revenue comes to me, I said, you cannot afford my services. Literally, like I can tell you cannot afford my services. However, the other thing we also do, which I think is super important, and people may disagree with me on this, but I refer the workout. So I say, I'm not the right fit, but here are like 8 people who I love. And I have actually gone through the work to find people who I align with, who I work well with. And I say, I can back up my recommendation to say, these are friends and colleagues and people I professionally trust. I've seen their work and I know they do a good job. So I actually vet, and I go through and I add to my website recommended professionals who are my partners and affiliates. And I say, here are some great professionals you can work with. You may not be ready for a CFO, but here are some amazing bookkeepers I recommend, because that will solve the problem you're trying to solve for right now. And it enhances my brand as a trusted resource and advisor to say, this is what you need. You don't need me, but here's what you do need. And it just expands the network and keeps them in the loop, so that my friends and colleagues who are using them, they're grateful for the referrals. So it's a complete win-win-win if you can find the right partners to work with.
So it's really about taking the higher road and letting them maybe have a recommendation, as opposed to just, nope, I'm not going to work with you, not a fit, which nobody wants to hear or actually say. Shannon, I'm just going to let you know you made some really powerful points. Always enjoy our conversations together. Some of the things that we covered is if you want to consider CFO services, how to be able to build so it supports your lifestyle, some of the ins and outs of it. And if somebody wanted to find out more about you and Financial Solutions, what's the best way for them to be able to follow up with you?
So my favorite way to interact with any content we publish is Keep What You Earn. It's a podcast that a lot of accountants listen to, in addition to entrepreneurs, business owners, and so on. But also you can go to keepwhatyouearncfo.com to find out more about our company. We are in the process of rebranding, and that is a much easier name to say. So go to keepwhatyouearncfo.com if you want to learn more about the company.
Thank you so much. And this is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing accounting professionals how to double their income working half the time.